Hey guys, it's Khalil,
Hey, it's Chad.
and we are the Marshals of Truth. Okay, so starting our part four, is it? Kind of
I think
losing
it's
track.
5 or 6.
Maybe I'm losing track of this point. Well, anyway, but we're still working on ethnonationalism, and and we're just really continuing to analyze the um, Putin's view of what's going on in Ukraine and why he should invade his own people to stop his people from attacking his people that are really Nazis. And hmm,
Yeah, that's about the drift. There you go.
yeah, it sounds about right. So yeah, I mean, where we left off. Okay, we we left off talking about the USSR and how in 1939 you had the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, and where the foreign ministers of the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany agreed to work together in regaining what had been lost in Eastern Europe post 1918. So, with the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which we mentioned, and where Russia lost a lot of its territory in Eastern Europe, this pact was meant to give them the ability or the written support by Nazi Germany to re-invade and reabsorb the Baltic nations of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, as well as Finland and parts of Poland, as well as northeastern Romania, to take back a lot of lands that had been lost. And with Germany, that was to take over parts of Poland and areas along the border with the Soviet Union. And so it was a it was a an agreement on both sides, which created a border between the two of them, um, that Hitler would invade along um, in his Operation Barbarossa in 1941. But thing is, before the betrayal, the great betrayal of 1941 with Operation Barbarossa, Stalin, the leader of the Soviet Union, allied with the Nazis. And and with being this ally of Hitler and the Nazi Germany, you can imagine that there was a lot of really unethical stuff that the Soviets would hear about, um, the Nazis telling them or hearing about. And so, in some ways, you really could say for those 2 years between 1939 and 1941, before the Great Betrayal, that they were actually Nazi collaborators.
Yeah,
They're actually the
and
biggest Nazi collaborators that never get mentioned, even though like they lost a lot of people in the betrayal by Hitler. Um, that did not mean that for those 2 years Stalin didn't have the intention of allying with Nazi Germany. Like we can't just forget that.
yeah, Putin seems to neglect the fact of who the USSR collaborated with to get that land of Poland back. Seems like he seemed to forgot who they worked with. Pretty strange. They just happened to get that land back.
Yeah, like they got their land back, but from where, from who, like goes a little forgotten. Putin, he'll go on and on saying, well, the Soviets, they contributed so much more to the Allied war effort than anyone else. And I mean, in the fight against Hitler, they did put up a lot of the brunt. They suffered the most of what the Nazis had to offer in World War II after the betrayal. But again, you cannot forget the beginning. So anyway, um, there was an idea that is still prevalent in much of the Russian government today, post-Soviet era, that um, um, that the Soviets provided for the republics within the USSR, um, like Ukraine or Belarus or or the Baltic nations, that they the Bolsheviks in power and the USSR was providing for those smaller nations, which is a little contradictory because the USSR is a union in and of itself, and like the Ukrainians helped the Russians just as much as the Russians helped the Ukrainians to win World War II and to regain territory. So it kind of makes no sense. But anyway, he says, quote, the Bolsheviks treated the Russian people as inexhaustible material for their social experiments. They dreamt of a world revolution that would wipe out national states. That is why they were so generous in drawing borders and bestowing territorial gifts. You want to establish a state of your own? You are welcome. But what are the terms? I will recall the assessment given by one of the most prominent political figures of New Russia, the first mayor of St. Petersburg, Anatoly Sobchak. As a legal expert who believed that every decision must be legitimate, in 1992, he shared the following opinion. The republics that were founders of the Union, having denounced the 1922 Union Treaty, must return to the boundaries they had had before joining the Soviet Union, end quote. So there's a lot of things to say about this. One, Russia and Russians, within the USSR they were just a piece of the overall Union. What the USSR did and what the Red Army did was not just the Russian army, it was not just Russia. Russians only made up about half of the entire population of the USSR to begin with. And while the territory of Russia is big, that doesn't mean that everything the USSR did during its time, fighting the Nazis or anyone else, was just Russia. The Ukrainians participated just as much as the Russians, just as much as the Estonians or Latvians or Lithuanians or Kazakhs or any other people within the Union. It's just that because the Russians have more people than any other group, that leads people like Putin to believe that they did more and therefore it was only them. And so, anyway, um, in the quote here, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so in this kind of quote, Putin, for one, separates the Bolsheviks from the Russians. He states it as if the Bolsheviks were a separate group of people who exploited the Russians and gave out these generous territories to these other nations of our own people. And we're so generous making these territories that should all come back to us for some reason. He paints the Bolsheviks as if they, some other group, that he doesn't even make it seem like they were the Russians, that the Bolsheviks exploited Russia, so the Russians exploited themselves in giving out land to other Russian people. Because keep in mind, all of the Slavic people are the Russian people, according to Putin. They're all
yeah,
the same people. So, I mean, Bolsheviks just giving out land, that's than the other, but they're exploiting Russia by giving their land away to other groups of their own people.
right. And on top of
Was
that, like the governmental structure of the USSR, the founding members of the Bolshevik Party were mainly majority Russian, and the people that governed the Bolshevik Party, which was the only party, the Communist Party of Russia, I mean of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. Um, they were also mainly Russians. The people who were majority making decisions, I'd say was about 80-90% Russian. The other people, they were kind of like minorities. If there was a Kazakh general in World War II, then they were scorned by the Russians. So they're the unity, they it's something that goes ignored, but it's strange because like at the same time, like Putin is selectively choosing to say when they're part of the larger group and when they're not, because he says the Bolsheviks, he's talking about the Bolsheviks as if they're separate from the Russian people, you know but really it was mainly Russians that were governing it. So when the Bolsheviks they mistreated the Russian people were really mistrust. They were really doing bad things to themselves, But then he also says that it was only Russia that did all those great things in World War II against Nazi Germany, but that's also ignoring the fact, as we mentioned, that it was a group effort of everyone in the Union.
Yeah. I mean,
It makes no sense.
it doesn't make any sense. And to act again as if the Bolsheviks were different people, in that they all, once again, it was a union. They all voted for this, right? There wasn't some outside group who just cut up they didn't get carved up like Syria and Iraq in the Middle East by Britain and France. No, they decided this for themselves. And yet you come back 100 years later and complain about it.
Right. And also I want to mention here the person that Putin is referring to in this quote, Anatoly Sobchak, one of the most prominent political figures of New Russia, first mayor of St. Petersburg, and being a legal expert by 1992. You know, so logic dictates that by 1992, if you're already a mayor, and you are already titled a legal expert, then you were probably that legal expert under the Soviet Union, and where the law was incredibly fucking flexible. So, like, the law was whatever the Communist Party of the Soviet Union wanted. It was whatever the General Secretary wanted or the Politburo wanted. It was not actually the law. So that's one thing to look at too. This legal expert, Putin was really just trying to find someone that was saying the same thing that he's saying. So, yeah.
Yeah. A little later in Putin's article, and talking about like Russia and stuff like that, he goes on to say, the feelings of millions of people who treat Russia not just well, but with great affection, just as we feel about Ukraine, remain the same. So we feel a great amount of affection for the Ukrainians, our people. It's all the same. Proceeds to bomb Ukraine, invade their cities, and invade
kill
for what?
kill, rape their people, but hey, come on, we're really our friends, you see.
Yeah, I mean, we're on the same team, by the way,
You know,
because we are the same people.
see Putin be like, hit me with that truth shit one more time. I swear to God. He's like, I swear this man is insane if he thinks that he considers the Ukrainian people to be brothers, at the same time that he's like bombing, killing, and raping them. This is a war of aggression. The amount of people that he's so that he the amount of people in eastern Ukraine, that are fighting against the Ukrainian government and were fighting against the Ukrainian government before this all-out invasion by Russia. Um, Putin likes to consider the Donbass War, as it is called, as a genocide by Ukrainians of ethnic Russians, which makes no
Right.
sense.
So the
They're
death of
supposed to
what
be
was like
people.
10,000 people, not
Yeah,
even.
he considers it a genocide when really it was just a conventional war. Like the Ukrainians weren't trying to exterminate the people of that area. The
No, it's a
Ukrainian
war. It was a
government.
war between two separatist nations and the Ukrainian government that had been a stalemate. This was not Ukrainian tanks rolling into Russian cities, rolling over their people, shooting everyone. No, for one, it was a stalemate. They're in trenches shooting at each other and telling the OSCE that they shot a mortar. This was not an act of genocide, gas chamber. No, there was none of that. This went on for 8 years, and not even for 8 years, more like a year, he started to claim this as some sort of genocide against these somehow different people who are, I guess, the same people as Ukrainians, but a little
Right.
more Russian in
And
this
so,
case.
like, he calls this true genocide, and he called it that true genocide as being part of his reasoning for doing what he's doing right now in Ukraine, for invading Ukraine, for starting a war in Ukraine. Um, and he continues to say in 2021, in July of 2021, when this first document was released,
With
um,
2022.
of the document itself, on the history.
Did
I
this not
think,
come out this year? My bad.
oh no, it came out in July 2021.
I was
Yes,
thinking of something else. Yeah.
right. Like he says that like us in Russia, we regard Ukrainians with great affection, and maybe the people do, you know, somewhat. But I mean, amongst the people that are blood related to people that live in Ukraine, but certainly not Putin, because he didn't need to do what he's doing right now in Ukraine. If you really consider the Ukrainian people to be people of which he regards with great affection, then he wouldn't invade them. Then he wouldn't call what they're doing right now a genocide. He would just look at the facts and realize that like these um these separatist like groups, which he funded, you know, are yeah, the separatist groups which he funded are somehow subject to genocide when the Ukrainians just want to maintain their territorial integrity, you
Oh yeah,
know.
and the Crimean Peninsula, which he invaded and annexed, and said it was their
Right.
voted. Yeah, so like that stuff that he did somehow was it, their choice again.
Right.
Like,
It kind of it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense with the whole like Donbass war interpretation because like he says that the people in eastern Ukraine want to be independent of Ukraine, like the Donetsk and Lugansk want to be independent of Ukraine,
yes,
and they are subjected to real genocide by the Ukrainian government.
right.
But, but like he,
What's differentiating the people of those two republics from the people of Ukraine? That's my question.
well, yeah, but
He,
then also like Putin, like he is funding these separatist groups, and they just so happen to start up that separatist war, only 3 months after the annexation of Crimea, which is very interesting timing, to think about it, because you
and
know
all of that just so happened to follow the Euromaidan, the Rose Revolution,
yeah, I think it was the Orange Revolution, but yeah, like the
right?
like it was a very interesting timing, like 3 months after the um um the annexation of Crimea, which came after the Euromaidan, um and the Orange Revolution, the Revolution of Dignity in Ukraine, where Yanukovych, the president at the time, which did not support Ukraine joining the EU, but the people wanted it, and so they made him flee Kiev, you know. Hope people
Oh,
can follow me on this, but basically it's like Putin knew what he was doing. He knew that he created this war, and then he proceeded to call it a genocide and then use it as a reason to invade Ukraine. He
yeah, he started
knows
a
what it,
problem to solve it. That's what he
right.
did.
Like, do you really think the separatist war in Ukraine that started in 2014, in May of 2014, was just a bunch of locals deciding they wanted to overthrow the Ukrainian government? You know, they were
No,
being funded by
Russia had
Russia.
a hand in this even before Euromaidan.
Right. Like, so Putin started the problem that he is now calling existential to the Russian people in Eastern Europe. It's like he started this. He knows what he's doing. So when he says we regard the Ukrainian people with great affection, no, he just wants to extend more power.
Yeah, extend his own nation to wherever it is and use whatever reason he can, and that's the historical unity of the Ukrainian and Russian people. All right, so we have another quote that I feel is one of the kickers of his logic. And all right, so as he lays it out, it would not be an exaggeration to say that the path of forced assimilation, the formation of an ethnically pure Ukrainian state, aggressive towards Russia, is comparable to its consequences to the use of weapons of mass destruction against that. All right, let's rewind that a little bit. All right, so it would not be an exaggeration to say that the path of forced assimilation, the formation of an ethnically pure Ukrainian state, so ethnically pure Ukrainians who are actually Russians. So, but Ukraine, because Ukrainian people doesn't exist. So, all right. So there's no Ukrainian people, but hypothetically speaking, if these people were to make a state of their entire non-existent ethnicity, it would be, but also that whole non-existent identity is actually the same of being Russian, as I neglect to note, of course. That's essentially the same as if we were nuked. All right. But creating a ethnically pure Ukrainian, which is actually Russian state, is definitely not what we, the Russian nation's trying to do. That's preposterous. We don't want to do that. You know, we respect the Ukrainian people who are actually the Russian people. But if they were to make a nation of only Russian people, of their that's not, it's not good, right? It makes sense. It's pretty simple, actually.
If you think about it,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
like,
actually, if you don't think about it, it makes even more sense.
right, right. It makes a lot more sense if you don't think about it. Again, he's inclusive. You see, he's he's inclusive. He's open to all levels of intelligence. Even the really dumb kind. You see,
He appeals to those who lack critical thinking skills, and I think that's very open-minded of him. I
the
could even call it progressive, honestly.
the people in the West don't do that. You
Mm-mm.
see, they always appeal to truth and shit.
Yeah, they're trying to appeal to those who have critical thinking skills and use evidence and logic. That's
Yeah,
elitist. Not everyone could think for themselves.
hit me with the truth shit one more time. I swear it to God. People can't think.
I mean, I don't know, man. This truth is a little too hard. I don't know if I could take it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But
Right.
clearly, you can see this guy has no idea what he's talking about, or he does know what he's talking about, and he's trying to lie to the Russian people, which is a lot more likely.
Yeah.
So yeah, like ethnically pure Ukrainian state, that makes no sense. If the
Right, right.
Russian
So let's just run that back. Okay, so if Ukrainians who are secretly Russians make their own ethnically pure Ukrainian state, which is an ethnically pure Russian state,
because they're the
is
same.
that no, but that's bad. If we do it, it's cool. But if
Mhm.
they were to do that, that's you see, that's the bad Russian in them, trying to think that they're other, but they're secretly Russian, you know?
Yeah.
See, actually, Russia and Ukraine are on the same page because if Ukrainians were to make this ethnically pure Ukrainian state, which is basically an ethnically pure Russian state, that's exactly what Russia's trying to do. We on the same, bro, dap me up.
We
We on the
are on
same
the
page,
same
man.
page.
They're on the same wavelength, and they honestly don't even realize it. I don't think they do. You see, if Putin saw that as the same, if that was really the goal of Ukraine and Russia and Putin recognized that, there would be no problem. It's just two Russians with different borders. It's chill. We cool.
Yeah, and I mean it really starts to, I mean it's already getting good, but you ever heard of the Holodomor? The forced collectivization um of the like of the lands of the Soviet Union in the late 20s, early 30s, meant to best distribute food production within the Soviet Union and to increase exports to other nations in Europe and abroad, beyond Europe, to improve the economy of the Soviet Union. You might also hear about the millions and millions of deaths in Ukraine, that also led that came from that back in
Right.
the early 30s under Stalin's collectivization policy. Now, interesting thing about Putin, because people then and people today recognize that the Ukrainians were really fucked over. That they were um, toyed around, and they were starved, and 5 to 6 million people died in Ukraine. Now, there was also a significant amount of people that had died in Kazakhstan as well, but it wasn't nearly as much felt in the Russian Socialist Republic within the USSR. Um, so it was not very well spread out. And that is what led many Ukrainian people soon after and today to consider it a form of genocide. So
Sounds familiar.
right. And Putin, he called it, quote, a common tragedy. So,
Yes. So
yes,
read that one off. Let's read that one in full. All right. So the common tragedy of collectivization and famine in the early 1930s was portrayed as a genocide of the Ukrainian people. All
portrayed.
right. Next point. There's no other mention of this, by the way. That was it.
He
After
literally
this, he
just,
went on to go talk about neo Nazis. If you want to go read the doc, that's kind of where it goes. It was the collective tragedy. We all of us Russians struggled in this. Damn, it was portrayed as a genocide, which is pretty crazy.
right.
Yeah,
But we were all equally hit.
yeah.
We,
I mean, us
I feel you,
united,
bro.
our
Me too,
Soviet
really.
socialist republics, we all felt it. It's like we all were starved, man. It
I
was,
get it. I get
yeah.
it.
I know
Me
how you
too.
feel.
It's like,
Damn.
I get it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, I feel you, bro. You know what I mean?
You see,
Shared
dude,
struggle. You know what I mean?
it was one struggle. One struggle. They on the same, we felt it. We all on the same side.
Yep.
One struggle, man.
All right, bro. All right.
Yeah, we get it.
Sure. Shared struggle. Okay, bro. I get it. See, this photo right here really just helps to show Putin right here. He really thinks that he's just laying it out to us. He's like,
I mean, listen, man, he's got the glasses. He seems like an academic to me. It's a very trustworthy individual.
yeah, I see that, and I'm like, okay, good.
Relieved. Indeed. All right, let's get another banger. Okay, so a little later he would say, in the anti-Russian project, there is no place either for sovereign Ukraine or for the political forces that are trying to defend its real independence. It's really sad. Even Ukraine doesn't want an independent Ukraine. It's terrible. It feels bad, man. Wouldn't you say?
I mean, it's tough. It's tough. And maybe they should just be part of Russia. I mean, if they don't even want it, then what's the
Exactly.
point?
See,
Yeah,
they don't even realize that they don't even want independence at all. I'm pretty
yeah,
sure it's just the West, honestly.
yeah. It's got to be the West, yo. You know what I
Of
mean? You know what
course.
I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, got to
I'm
be
saying.
NATO. Biden. You know. Yes.
Listen, man, Brandon's always up to something, so.
Yep. Biden. It's all the West. At
It's
it again.
always, dude, it's always the West.
Always.
I mean, why do you think the Soviet Union fell? The West. Why do you think Ukraine exists? The West. Why do you think the war started? The West. I mean, come on. What hasn't the West done? I mean, the West took my cereal in the morning, dude. How am I supposed to eat?
Yeah,
Who do you think did that genocide in Ukraine? The West?
The
Come
West took
on,
my
man.
backpack. The West took my lunch. The
Hmm.
West kicked me in the hallway.
Bro, the West ate my homework. Like, come on. What am I
That
supposed to do,
fucker.
man?
That fucker. Oh my god. Yeah, fuck that guy. You
The
know,
West.
you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yep. All right. So, we got another banger coming up. So,
Near the
coming
end.
towards,
We're
oh
near the
yeah,
end. Just so you know.
near the end. We'll get to a point that comes just a little bit before this. But one we just wanted to state. Okay, so end of a paragraph. He says, "We respect Ukrainians' desire to see their country free, safe, and prosperous." When a space return, to go down the next paragraph, how you write an essay, all that kind of stuff. All right, cool. New sentence. Okay. "I am confident that the true sovereignty of Ukraine is possible only in partnership with Russia."
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yes. So I respect that they want freedom. However, the only way they could truly be free is through bondage. I
Right,
think I think that's pretty clear if you ask me.
right. They'll like
When you look
take
at
them
it,
over, and
when you
then
look at it, peace, freedom really is slavery if you put your mind to it.
oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
It's like you're a
Ingsoc was
slave to
really
like being able to do whichever you want with freedom. So like you might as well just go into slave. It's like the same thing.
right. Freedom is, yeah, it is, and war is peace. Because
Yeah.
you know, Russia doesn't start wars; it ends them. It's bringing peace right now to Ukraine. If you think about it, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
It's like
dude.
war is peace. You
And
know,
his brotherly feeling. This is all in love, you know what I mean?
yeah,
For
war
his
is,
love for
yeah,
the Ukrainian people, those
yeah.
ties, you know what I
Oh
mean?
my
Just
God,
go deep. He loves them so much that he has to hurt them, out of love.
right? Freedom is slavery.
I think that's beautiful, honestly.
War is peace, and then he tells the Russian people to be ignorant, and that's strength. Oh my God. Oh my God. This man is literally trying to turn Russia into Inkstock right now. It's crazy. It's
I'm
crazy.
telling you, man, this man is brilliant.
this,
Truly the leader of all time.
this man. Yeah. And so,
Yeah, we
right.
have we're starting to get near the time. We do have a little more serious one where he talked about comparing, the partnership between Russia and Ukraine. So he would go on to say that the incumbent authorities in Ukraine like to refer to Western experience, seeing it as a model to follow. Just look at how Austria and Germany, the USA and Canada live next to each other. Close in ethnic composition, culture, in fact. Sharing one language, they remain sovereign states with their own interests. With integration or allied relations, they have very conditional, transparent borders, and when crossing them, the citizens feel at home. They create families, study, work, do business. Incidentally, so do millions of those born in Ukraine who now live in Russia. We see them as our own close people. A very poignant comparison between what essentially the Ukrainians and the Russians do together. Ukraine as a sovereign state should be able to make its own decisions while being similar, can have the same language and all that. Oh wait, no, but they're the same state. They actually shouldn't have that. Because, next paragraph. "I'm confident that true sovereignty of Ukraine is possible only in partnership with Russia." So
Because
like
that
all
quote
that
came,
stuff, nah, they can't do that, by the way.
yeah, that quote came a paragraph later after that one where he says Ukraine is just like Germany and Austria and Canada and America. They have these transparent borders. They respect each other's sovereignty and all that. But
Yeah,
then he's true sovereignty is really under us, if you think
see,
about it. So
brilliant. The sovereign states who are different but similar is basically the same as Ukraine not being sovereign with us. It's almost a direct comparison, actually.
it's
No,
this.
no contradictions there.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I get it. Do
That makes
you?
perfect sense to me, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
As we
So
wrap this up, I've just realized the brilliance of Vladimir Putin,
yeah,
honestly.
I mean, Vladdy Daddy. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? 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 Yep.
Yes, sir.
So like clearly the West should not take this bullshit. It's crazy that someone is trying to fuck with the good thinking minds of the average people today in modern society. This is not 1850 anymore. This is not 1935 anymore.
Yeah,
You
we
can't
aren't just making up our borders. We got them already.
right, and you don't, and even it would like I don't even know what to say. What would be worse than this? I mean, like he's already like tried to take over the nation, put his entire army into the country. He's killed like what's got to be 200,000 people. I heard in one source, you know, and like he basically wants them off the map. He's
You're
shooting
erasing an ethnic group that's also the same.
right. Like it makes no sense. So the West should not take this bullshit. We've said it multiple times in different episodes, but like this is not something someone does in the modern day. We've said multiple times that Zelensky is on the side of truth and Putin is not. And with these past few episodes where we went down into Putin specifically and his document on the historical unity of Russians and Ukrainians, we hope to have made that clear.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I hope we've made it clear. Putin. I mean, if you didn't get it already, Putin's an ethno-nationalist and a very, very stupid one at it. I think you could come to the same conclusion if you see the same stuff. But
right.
yeah, um, we will continue this series looking at different ethno-nationalists. And yeah, without further ado, we are the Marshals of Truth, and we will see you in the next episode.